Well, I mean, survival actually is an explanation that some of us can tolerate, but it really doesn't put food on the table or allow people to pay bills, which is part of the problem. Speaking of sort of resistance against common sense, so what we've seen is a strange phenomenon, I think, with a lot of Republicans and certainly Republican governors in the face of COVID. If any of you have ever gone through the challenges of trying to lose weight, moment you look at that scale and you've lost 5 pounds does not mean it's time to go to Dunkin' Donuts. And yet, you have a lot of Republican governors who've decided that now that we sort of flatlined with COVID, we can open everything up. Juanita, when we're seeing this in Texas, when we're seeing this in Mississippi, is this just indicative of these governors saying, all right, look, we got to reopen the economy because after a year of this, people are starving? Or is it just a manifestation of them always doubting science and not knowing how to properly lose weight?
I literally think they're thinking, what would Trump do in this scenario? Because I know a lot of the Republicans in my state trust him, follow him, believe him, and they're playing into that hand. And let's be real, that's a very stupid question when you're responsible for protecting people who live in your state. They're absolutely acting in a criminal way, frankly, that does not see their constituents' humanity, does not see their value of their lives, and it's dangerous. While it might have some political response to the Republicans in their state, ultimately is causing harm, especially in a state where Texas, where they're just getting over a storm, where thousands probably still have boil water orders because they don't have access to clean water. And now this just so the governor can say at CPAC, hey, my state's an oasis of freedom, just like Florida. Like, is that it? Literally, that's what he's exchanging in return for people's safety and their lives. And it's very dangerous. It's reckless and honestly criminal.
We're going to stay in Texas for a minute. Dr. DeFrancesco Soto. So, in order to avoid, I guess, discussing the power outages, in order to avoid this, apparently the mismanagement of COVID, you now have Governor Abbott saying, hey, look, the reason COVID is spreading so much in this state is because of immigrants, all of these diseased immigrants coming across the border. My question to you first is, does anyone believe this? And then second, how dangerous is this kind of rhetoric from the governor of a state to basically condemn large swaths of people as being diseased?
Well, let me put this in historical context, Jason, because I do think it is important that this is a tried and true trope to scapegoat immigrants. I mean, going back to when the Irish came over and then the Chinese and then the Southern and Eastern Europeans, you always see this story about immigrants bringing disease, immigrants not being clean. The eugenics movement really flourished, when we saw the waves of immigration coming. So that was not a novel line of attack that Governor Abbott used. However, it is very dangerous when we're seeing the attacks on immigrant communities. We're also seeing attacks on Asian American communities related to COVID. There is a hate that is being festered towards these folks that are scapegoated, which, in fact, they do not have higher rates of COVID than the general population. The mayor of Brownsville was discussing how those folks that they're testing that are coming out of the facilities are at about 6%, which is about what the state averages here in Texas. But this is very, very dangerous. I mean, look, if you want to be an immigration restrictionist, fine, do that. Knock yourself out. But don't start making these false claims, because these false claims can very easily spiral into folks getting hurt, folks getting killed, and folks who are some of our most vulnerable populations. Many of these folks are asylees that have been waiting for months and months and months on the Mexican side of the border because of the Raymond-Mexico policy. So Texas right now, it's at a juncture, right, where we have seen the state battered with the power outages. We've seen our economy really altering because of the storm, because of COVID, and now these immigration attacks. It's really something that has me incredibly worried, Jason.
Hey, thanks for watching our YouTube channel. You should know that you can follow today's top stories and breaking news and catch up on your favorite MSNBC shows all in one place. Download the NBC News app today.